All right, today we're jumping into one of the most just epic stories in all of history. We're talking about ancient Athens. You know, the city that gave the world democracy, philosophy, all that timeless art. But it's a story of incredible highs and then a spectacular fall. So let's get into how it all went down.
And really, this whole story boils down to one massive question. How does a democracy, a city that's all about freedom and the power of the people, how does that city become an empire that forces other cities to do its bidding? That's the contradiction, right? The central puzzle that we're going to unpack.
So where does this golden age even come from? Well, you might be surprised to hear it wasn't born in a time of peace. No, it was forged in fire. I'm talking about a desperate fight for their very survival, the Persian Wars. This is what made Athens, well, Athens.
I mean, just look at the matchup here. The two sides were like night and day. On one hand, you've got the colossal Persian Empire. Their soldiers, they were subjects, fighting because a king far, far away told them to. But then you have the Greeks. These are citizen soldiers. They're fighting for their own homes, for their families, for their freedom. And that difference in why they were fighting, that was going to be a total game changer.
And this war, it gave us some of the most legendary battles you've ever heard of. It all kicks off in 490 BC, the Battle of Marathon. And against all odds, Athens pulls off a stunning win. 10 years go by and Persia comes back, this time with a huge army. You've heard of the 300 Spartans at Thermopylae, right? That heroic last stand? Well, while that was happening, the Athenian navy was playing chess. They brilliantly tricked the massive Persian fleet into a narrow channel at Salamis and just annihilated them. And that right there, that was the turning point. Greece was safe. And Athens, suddenly they were the undisputed kings of the sea. This victory wasn't just about winning a war. It was the spark. It gave them the money, the confidence, the swagger to build everything that came next. This is what paid for their golden age.
So, that victory ushers in this incredible era we call the Athenian Golden Age. We're talking about Pericles, the building of the iconic Parthenon, the birth of Western philosophy, Socrates, Plato. It's all happening right here. Athens truly saw itself as the school of the world. And you can really hear their pride in this quote from their great leader, Pericles. In this famous speech, he's basically laying out the Athenian ideal, a city where it doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, what matters is what you can do, a place where everyone is engaged in public life. He called Athens the school of Greece, and they absolutely believed it.
Okay, but, and this is a huge but, we have to ask who was actually included in this amazing democracy. The truth is, for all its glory, it was incredibly exclusive. See, in their minds, the right to vote was directly linked to the duty to fight, and since only men served in the army, well, only men got a say. That means women, slaves, foreigners, basically most of the people living in Athens, had zero political power. None.
And that brings us to let's call it the dark underbelly of the Golden Age. Because here's that paradox again. The same city that was so proud of its democracy at home started acting like a bully abroad. They took a friendly defensive alliance and twisted it into an empire. The tool they used to do this was something called the Delian League. Think of it like an ancient version of NATO. It started with a noble purpose, all these Greek city-states banding together for protection against Persia. Everyone would chip in, either ships or money, and Athens, with its big navy, would lead the way. Sounds great, right? But, yeah, what began as a partnership was about to take a very different turn.
So how does that even happen? How do you go from allies to subjects? Well, it happens step by step. First, it's all about mutual defense. Totally reasonable. Then, some allies say, hey, instead of sending ships, can we just send you money? Athens says, sure. But then comes the big move. Athens takes the league's shared treasury and moves it from a neutral island right into Athens itself. Now, suddenly, all that defense money is being used to build the Parthenon and pay for Athenian projects. And the final nail in the coffin, when a city-state said, you know what, we want out, Athens sent its navy and said, no, you don't. The alliance was officially no longer a choice.
As you can imagine, Athens' power and its arrogance just kept growing. And there was another major power in Greece, watching all of this with deep suspicion: the Spartans. Sparta and Athens were total opposites, and Sparta started to get really, really nervous. This fear, this rivalry, it was a powder keg, and it was about to explode into a war that would tear the Greek world apart.
And that was the Peloponnesian War. We're not talking about a little border dispute here. This was basically a Greek world war. It split everyone into two teams. You had Team Athens, with its powerful navy and empire of islands, and you had Team Sparta, with its unbeatable army on land. It was a classic elephant versus whale scenario, and it would drag on for 27 long, brutal years.
For Athens, this war was just one disaster after another. Just a year into it, a horrifying plague breaks out inside the city walls. It kills a quarter of their people, including their visionary leader, Pericles. Then later on, they launch this huge, over-the-top invasion of Sicily, and it's a complete and utter catastrophe. Their army, their navy, wiped out. After 27 years of fighting, a starved and broken Athens finally surrendered. The Golden Age was well and truly over.
But here's the thing, the story doesn't stop there, because that awful war, it didn't just break Athens, it left all of Greece exhausted, broke, and divided. And whenever there's a power vacuum in history, someone steps in to fill it. This time, it was a tough new kingdom from the north called Macedonia, and their arrival was about to change everything.
Now, the king of Macedonia had a son, a brilliant, ambitious kid named Alexander. You probably know him as Alexander the Great. This is the guy who was tutored by Aristotle himself, and he unleashes one of the most insane military campaigns the world has ever seen. In just 13 years, he conquers pretty much the entire known world, from Greece all the way to the edge of India. It's just staggering.
Now the crazy thing is, Alexander's actual empire, it fell apart almost the second he died. But what he left behind was something way more powerful and long-lasting. It's a concept we call Hellenism. And really, it just means the spread of Greek culture. Suddenly, Greek language, Greek art, Greek ways of thinking, they weren't just for Greeks anymore. They belonged to the whole world he had conquered.
And this quote just nails it. Alexander conquered armies. His culture conquered time. His political empire was fleeting, but his cultural one was forever. He didn't just win battles. He founded new cities based on the Greek model, spreading the language and ideas that Athens had pioneered all across Asia and Africa. And you can still feel that legacy today. The version of Greek that spread, Koine Greek, is the language the New Testament was originally written in. The new center of knowledge wasn't Athens anymore. It was the Great Library of Alexandria in Egypt. So here's the ultimate irony, right? It was the failure of the Greek city-states, their inability to stop fighting each other, that ultimately allowed Greek culture to spread across the globe and have its most enduring triumph. Which brings us, full circle, back to a big question. The story of Athens is a classic cautionary tale, isn't it? It shows how that confidence you get from winning can so easily turn into arrogance, how the very pride that fuels a golden age can become the fatal flaw that brings it all crashing down. And you see this pattern again and again throughout history. Which really makes you think, when does a nation's greatest strength become its most dangerous weakness?